My name's Ashling and I'm a Customer Value Manager here. And I have the pleasure of hosting or moderating today's session. And I would like to introduce you to our lovely guests who are joining us today to talk about learning in the flow of work. I'll hand over to them so they can introduce themselves. Fred, you're first on my screen. So would you like to get us kick-started?
Yes, thanks. So I'm Frédéric Hebert. I'm the Chief Learning Officer at RiseUp. So what is RiseUp? We're all-in-one learning solution. So we're providing all the elements that L&D needs to be equipped with. But to give more, let's say context about myself, I used to be in L&Ds for 15 years before, running large organizations such like Danone or Danone. In the US, I guess it's the name for the brand, or it's a big company like GE. And before that, I was also in tech. So I used to have a first life in tech, then a second life in L&D running large organization, and also be an happy client of Easy Generator a long time ago who have deployed their technology at scale at Danone for 100,000 employees.
Wow. Well, thanks, Fred. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of interesting insights to share. So we're really happy to have you and to have you back again. Angie, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashling. Lovely to see your smiling face. By the way, everybody, I'm going to be smiling along. So, bear with me on that. So I'm this little person with a lot of energy, and Easy Generator knows that. And Fred, how lovely to meet you as well and know your background. So, okay, who am I? So I am Angie, and I am an engineer turned into a learning and development strategist. So I've been in this industry for over 2 decades, literally started from here to, all the way up where I am today. And in this span of time, I've had the opportunity to work with clients like, technology clients like HPE, Apple, IBM, you name them, because I was with the distribution as a consultant. And one of the last projects that I worked with them was with Cisco on cybersecurity. And that got me hooked because, engineer and the technology. And I was like, cybersecurity? This is like your food and textiles, right? You cannot be without clothes. I mean, you know what I mean. And you cannot be without food. So, cybersecurity is one of those things. It is here to stay, guys. So if you haven't thought about a career in cybersecurity, think about it. So I am so grateful that I'm here with Claroty. I've been with them for coming close to 3 years now. And I kind of head the digital enablement for Claroty globally. And in that time, I've had the amazing opportunity to work with Easy Generator. So for our 50 to 80,000 learners that we have for a growth company of our size, it has been amazing working with EG. So and I think this is such a fantastic topic and discussion to be part of, where learning in the flow, everything is evolving, every technology, cybersecurity, everything is evolving. So you got to find ways of uh, making learning interesting for our learners in the flow. So yeah, excited to be here. Looking forward to all your questions. Please be open and let's have a fantastic session. Thank you, Ashling.
You're very welcome. And thank you, Angie. Love the enthusiasm. I'll try to match you, but I definitely agree. It's an exciting time to be in learning or in tech more generally, which also segues us nicely into what we're talking about today, which is going to be learning in the flow of work. So we're talking about how we help people solve problems, but also build skills without stepping away from their jobs. So instead of carving out hours for formal training, it's about delivering support at that moment of need. So whether that's a quick checklist, a tooltip in a piece of software, or it could be a 2-minute video that you access, let's say, on a shop floor. So the principle here is pretty simple. If something or a piece of learning interrupts work, it's not in the flow. And if it supports work, it will be in the flow. But we'll dive a little bit deeper. And today we're going to explore how organizations are making the shift, what's working in practice, and where we're headed next. So I think we have some really smart minds here. So we can dive into why learning in the flow of work matters now. Why is learning in the flow of work becoming a priority? And Fred, perhaps you'd like to provide some input on that.
It's a good question. When I hear what you said, it's funny because I'm thinking about my old days when we were discussing about LIFO a couple of years ago, because it's not a new concept. I will slightly rephrase that. why learning is a flow of work is even more important now than it was. It's not a question about
Yes.
being important; it's becoming even more important, and this is mainly due to the context we're living on. We know, as expert in L&D, that the world is changing, evolving very fast. Uh, let's say the skills, most of the skills will be changed based to analysts or researcher.
Mhm.
Some of them will disappear in 2 years. It depends. The lifespan of skills will change. So there is a question about, uh, let's say, upskilling, time to upskill, or time
Mhm.
to skill. At WiseUp, we call that time to skill, which is basically the idea about you have a skill and you need to be upskilled the fastest possible. And LIFO is one of the solutions because it's a bottleneck. If you don't have this approach, it can create a bottleneck. If you need to interrupt your job or do whatever action and wait 6 months to be upskilled, it's a problem because we know that skill will change quite fast. If it's 16 months, I will be trained, but my skill have been changed in 6 months. Doesn't mean anything. So there is a question about immediate actions. And that's a pure logic about why it's important. Even more important, it's because the world is changing so fast. If you look at what AI is bringing and how jobs are changing, it's a question of
Mhm.
surviving. So, I was
Yeah.
reading an article this morning about workforce and impact on AI. The good thing is, in a couple of years, AI will create more jobs that it will destroy. But what we know is in the next 2, 3 years, there is a huge impact on the current workforce. So we need to do
Yeah.
and take action right now for the next
Mhm.
couple of years to make sure people are upskilled with this new context. So this is why doing LIFO is key because you don't have the time to wait. You need to take proactive action, immediate actions, and this is why it's matter the most. So it's not a question
Yeah.
about it matters, it's matter more now.
Yeah, I like that, reframing it to why it matters more now. And I think it's something that we all see and we're all learning. There's new skills and new platforms, new ways of working popping up, and we need to keep the speed with that. Um, I think I've also noticed, and I made up a word today, maybe I didn't, but I was speaking to a client about how we've also come to expect different types of knowledge. And I'm calling it the TikTokification of learning. But yeah, if you ask my younger sister to do something new, I promise you she's not phoning a friend. She's picking up her mobile phone and she's going to TikTok, Google, YouTube, or a platform that I don't even know about yet. But yeah, Angie, I'm curious from the practical side, boots on the floor. Do you have anything to add here about why learning in the flow is important now, or more important now, as Fred put it?
I think definitely, like Fred said, why is it more important now? And Ashling, so good to hear the analogy of your, younger sister. I've got two daughters. One is 8 and one is 13, and they're all going on God knows what ages. But yes, you're right. Oh my God, the learning. We are one of those people. Probably not you, Ashling, but Fred, you will relate to this. That we've learned in such a different way, and our mindset of learning was so different versus the mindset of learners in this generation this day and age. Forget about the new Gen Z or whatever you call it. But even us, people like us, have to evolve, right, to kind of stay up with them. So for me, this is more like a psychology has changed. The whole mindset around learning has changed. And I want to give kind of uh, every business is working towards outcomes, right? Whether we've
Mhm.
we've got go to market teams, we've got product teams, we've got marketing, we've got customer success. This is my experience, at least working with Claroty. And uh, within learning and development world, it's now essential that learning drives the business outcomes. So I don't know if you are all aware of the 60 methodology of designing, and the D1 is define the outcome. What's the business outcome? And people are so used to kind of the AI coming in, taking over the world, as you said, Fred, positively. Everything is available in fingertips, right? And so that's the mindset people have. Like, I can just watch a TikTok, I can just watch Instagram. 1 minute, my learning speed, where I could spend hours and hours, now I really don't, because my mind is getting conditioned into give me something quick, give me something, that I can consume very quickly. So our company, me, I've kind of adapted to a strategy of micro learning from that purpose, that we can't overload our learners with heavy learning. We have to break it. We have to put it in my bite size and train them as to, how to learn in that manner. Of course, we will never be able to do that in a TikTok, Instagram manner, but I guess micro learning definitely has become, a lot more significant. So programming their brains and mindset away from your traditional learning. So yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, and I think yeah, you've connected it really nicely. So yeah, TikTok is maybe a disconnected example here, but yeah, we need to connect to the business and business outcomes, and microlearnings is an easy way of doing that. Which brings up a second question for me or my side, and perhaps some people joining us here for the conversation are thinking the same thing. Fred, you mentioned speed and being able to fill those skill gaps and reach learners. Um, but today we're also focusing on, yeah, how do we ensure that we're helping with performance? So I'd be curious on where you see the difference between teaching someone and helping somebody to do something.
Yeah. Before, answering this question, I wanted to react a bit on what we said before. And I think what is
Mm-hmm.
interesting is we are facing two problems. What I said,
Mm-hmm.
the pace of change, and what we said, the TikTok effect. And I think
Yes.
it's two different topics that we need to tackle at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. Because one thing happened, it's let's say the freedom of internet that was at our age not available. But the new generation is used to that. So it's important to have these two elements in parallel, because one is about upskilling and we need to do that. And the other one is also about retention and engagement. So there needs to
Yeah.
be tracked together. And that's quite interesting. And I wanted to just highlight that. And the question about helping versus teaching, it's interesting because it reminds me a quote, and I'm hoping this is a real quote and I'm not wrong. It's about Confucius, this Chinese philosopher. He said, "You can help someone to get a fish, or you can help him to know how to get a fish, and it will eat forever." So it's a question
Mm-hmm.
about providing help right now, and I'm doing your job. Did you learn anything? And you will not be able to do it the same thing tomorrow. Or can I show you and guide you to be independent later? To be honest, I prefer the second options. That's more my belief. I believe we need to help people to be more independent and not rely on support from others. So for me, this is a big difference between helping and teaching. It's making people independent to perform an action and so perform at the end of the day. So that's my belief. And I think, I'm hoping that you share the same value, but I truly convinced about that. Teaching is more important than helping. We can help for sure, but you should not take the ownership of everything. You need also to upskill people to make them independent in life. That's what you do with your kids. You're helping them, but you're raising them also. Sorry, I'm not saying adult are kids, but I'm trying to use kind of the same
Yes.
story. With your kids, you're raising them. You're not helping them all the life. To do the laundry or whatever. At one point, you're fed up with laundry. You need to know how to do your laundry.
Yeah,
Well,
100%.
a
So
little bit
yeah,
too
it's really
pragmatic.
important.
I got my kid this
No,
weekend, so I was thinking about that.
but I think it's something that we can all relate to. So certainly when we're learning something, yeah, if we want it to be impactful, we need to be able to take what we learned and put it into practice, which makes a lot of sense. And I think if we go back to this, yeah, there's two problems, or not problems, but two questions here. One, how do we reach people? And then also the content that we're providing. And we spoke about TikTok and other platforms. But there is a danger here that we're providing or that learners are accessing incorrect information. Um, so, Angie, I'd be really curious if you have any insights on how we can enable professionals to get access to the right information or the most relevant information, at least.
Yes. Because of, so I'll share the use case that we have here within Claroty. And I think a lot of the organizations are not thinking like that. So, for example, at least in my on demand learning side of the world, um, where we have to think about where traditionally the learning was very much designed to be provided, on a certain day or on a certain topic. And there were training targets and times and all of those things defined. But I think how we are doing here in Claroty, and like quite rightly, like Fred said, or, as we all think, we want to make sure that we are not stopping them from functioning. So one of the things we have implemented here within Claroty is we have mapped our tools in such a way that it integrates into everything else that they are using. For example, your CRM, so Salesforce is something that we use. So making sure that our easy generator content that we are creating is kind of integrated into there, our Hi Bob HR tool. So that is one, that integration is so important, that all the learning needs to be available where they go and spend their maximum of your time. So we have mapped all our content to roles, to the capabilities of the roles, to the sales stages, so that if somebody's stuck in discovery, immediately they know that, okay, I can take this training that is going to help me. So, one, that training is available exactly at the stage where they are struggling. And two, it's available in a format that it's easy for them to take. So it's not like, okay, now you need to park your 2 hours to sit and take the training. So no, no, quick 5 minutes. And even that, they have options. They can go into module 1 or they can go into module 2. It's not sequenced like normally your MBAs or your heavy certifications are there. So for me, that is so important, that making sure that systems are integrated so that the learnings are fed directly where our consumers will consume it, right? And
Yeah.
that's where we see our consumption rate is going to be good, our learners' performance is going to be good, because they're getting
Mhm.
everything as and when on the
Yeah.
go.
You're reaching them where they are, I
Yeah.
suppose, in all the different systems. It makes sense. And I can see that. I hope that the the conversation so far is resonating with people. I see some comments in the chat. So, for example, Tiffany, we absolutely agree that the way people learn has definitely changed, and younger employees do expect instant answers. So it's interesting to see how this is happening. And that's why learning in the flow of work is so powerful. It meets the needs of different generations and different people, and it's not forcing one learning style on everybody,
Right.
which I think brings us nicely maybe to our second point here. So we're talking about learning in the flow, but we haven't really dived or dove, if I speak properly, into what that means just yet. Um, so I'm curious, Fred, do you have any takes on what makes something truly in the flow versus an interruption?
I mean, you just sum up everything. Interruption. As soon as you need to interrupt your job, that makes a big difference. It creates a bottleneck. So, for example, if I use a previous example when I was at Danone and we were doing yogurt or water, if you need to
Mhm.
stop the chain, the production chain that produce yogurts, you need to stop it for many people at the same time. You need to plan. So there is a full logistic that could be counterproductive. So it's simple example for this one. It's when you're on shop floor, you have the production machine. You need to lock the production machine. You're not producing anything for a certain amount of time. That's not truly in the flow of work. It means you need to schedule and think about it. So for me, when it becomes to be really LIFO, it's if I can get access to learning and learning in general, meaning I've seen in the chat something about knowledge management, knowledge, whatever helped me to upskill myself right away. So that will be the ideal case. It's not always possible, depending on the population. But for me, the LIFO, the end game is really to be able to access any type of information in general that help me to perform my action at the right moment. So for salespeople, if I have CRM, I can access my learning. I'm someone in HR, I can have access to in iBob of my learning because I don't know, I have recruitment, I need to know the 5 powerful questions to ask for a candidate. I could have that in my solution. So it's clearly depending on the job. It's not always easy because the frontline is a little bit more complex, but it's really the question about time. So I need to have access to the information that is required for me now. That's really what is life. And again, I know it's complex, it's challenging based on what you're operating in terms of job, but that's what companies like us trying to solve.
So it makes sense. Depends on the role, but maybe even potentially the person. And I like that you touched on the question itself. So it all bases on interruption. Angie, yeah, again, somebody who's working on implementing training into the flow of work. I'd be curious to get your take on this as well. So what makes something truly in the flow versus an interruption?
Right. So I think this we have to think about how we are designing the courses as well, because learning and development, L&D has always been perceived
Mhm.
as, okay, they're the ones who will create the trainings, they will provide us whatever it is that we need. I think we need to move away from that assumption and actually work with the business unit. So one of the things that works beautifully in our organization here with Claroty is I work with every single business unit. So I'm not just working inside my business unit, which is the digital enablement, but or the Excel Academy, as we call it. But I also work with the customer success team or with the go-to-market team, and I kind of ask them, "What is your what are your what is it that you want from learning? How do you want to learn?" So, and also knowing about the product knowledge, so we are not just waiting for the content to be just given to us and then we put it in the wonderful easy generator and then it creates, technically that is what easy does. It just wonderfully creates the course for us, but it's that what is the content that we are putting in there, because then the content becomes very relevant to them, because it kind of trickles that part of their brain where they're thinking, that is why I need to do this course. So in every course that we design, there are two elements I ask. What is the problem that we are trying to solve? Right? And if you take this course, this is how you can think about the solution. Literally, every single course will have these two things covered. What is the problem statement? What's the solution? And because that is how salespeople function, or that is how the product is creating or innovating the content. Like, why do we need to do this? What is the problem we are solving, right? So our courses, our learning needs to reflect that, and that will be the hook to how the learners are going to learn, and that will kind of take away from the interruption side of things, because they are naturally seeing that's the problem I want to solve for my customers, and if I take that content, it'll help me get that solution to the customers. So yeah.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. So you're hooking learners with the content, so making it relevant for them, and you're doing that through, if I understood correctly, working with all business units across the organization.
It's
Which I think there's a question for or from the chat, which could be really relevant here, and it's around how do you manage the content then in this case and ensure that it's up to date? Like, is it hosted all within Easy Generator and your LMS, or yeah, what's your approach there, or what would you advise somebody looking to take a similar approach?
Oh my God, updating the content, especially, in my world of cybersecurity, where every day new threats are coming, the R&D is coming with new things. We need to add those things into our content. So for us, that dynamic way of updating the content is critical. It's mission critical, because we need to keep our learners updated with how the product is evolving. What are the new threats that are out there? So, well, one of the things that's absolutely helped us in the past few months is adopting to the dynamic update. So, all our systems, we are kind of looking into that. And I love what Easy Generator has, your dynamic uh, updating, where we've created the content. So, for example, we are currently in Brazil presenting, doing a workshop for about 30 of our partners who help us sell our solutions, and we created a pre-work for them that they need to come to the academy and take the content. Now, as we did that, the product team comes and says that, no, 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 these two things need to be added. They have to know, the partners need to know that. So because we had that dynamic SCORM file available for from Easy Generator, we were just able to go in and make the update. So the learners don't have to stop and take a version 2. They still continue to take that with a notification that these are the two things that have been added. So it's not that they have to take the whole thing, but they know what the update is. So for us, having, not just for us, I think any business should think about how can you do things dynamically and not having to put a pause to a course, pull it out, and then relaunch it again. How can you do things dynamically? And everybody's learning online, so that element is super critical, at least for our
Excellent.
business. And I'm sure it'll help many other people
Yeah.
listening to this.
I hope so. And just to make sure I understood correctly here, so the knowledge holders or the business is also coming to you saying, we have an update. So some of keeping
Correct.
that, yeah, keeping that relevant also lies with the knowledge holders or leaders
Yes,
within the business. Okay,
correct.
fantastic. And yeah, there's lots of questions, which is exciting to see. Um, Fred, I know that there's some that you can also help with as well. And that's a question from Eldon around how you see the difference between training and then knowledge management. Both are important, but also slightly
I mean,
different.
for me, it's two different concepts. It achieves the same need, but it's two different things. It's basically you manage your knowledge. Training is the action of training people. Both things could be under learning, which is upskilling people. It's two different modalities, and it doesn't happen at the same time. So I need knowledge to upskill myself, and sometimes knowledge could be transferred into a training. But it's really two things that are totally complementary. And it's funny because in my previous life, when I was both IT and learning, it was always a question about learning and knowledge management. Who was owning the kind of the priority? But at the end, we were all working together. So it's two different elements, but working hand in hand.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, two different things complement each other, but both important. And I see even more happening in the chat. I know that we're focusing as well on, yeah, content and training in general and how we can maybe transform some technical trainings or heavy PowerPoints. And yes, long PowerPoints aren't maybe how people learn anymore. They are important, we are using them, but there is an opportunity now to turn that knowledge into quick, usable resources that people can access when they need them. And of course, sometimes you can even enable those knowledge holders to transform that content themselves, whether it's something quick or something a little bit longer, just depending on the topic, of course.
Can I just
Um,
quickly add
yeah,
something to that, Ash,
mhm.
that you
Yeah,
were
of course.
adding, like, looking at the comments that people are doing. So I work with a whole team of instructional designers, designers and developers. They come from a place where they have done development of traditional training, where convert the PowerPoints into all different type of trainings.
Hmm.
But I think now, because we are thinking about people who consume content in TikTok, Instagram manner, so how do you cater all the different learning types, like your auditory learners, your visual learners, and your kinesthetic learners, right? So you have the text, but it's not super text heavy, but you put flip cards or images or a little bit of 3D scenarios in there. And when you're actually doing your voiceovers, one of the things we've recently tested is we are not just translating the text into voiceover, because that just we observed, and the feedback we got from our learners was that it's very monotonous. So we made it very conversational using AI, using the EG's AI. Like, we set the prompt that make this text conversational, and it was just so interesting to see that how that audio flows into the visual. So
Hmm.
that is one of the things that, if there are any instructional designers here, could benefit from. We've got some amazing feedback on that.
So yeah, so from the design approach, there's some tools that you can use to help make that jump or that change, let's say, a little bit easier. And I know, Fred, that you've had experience kind of rolling out this type of approach at Danone. Would you
Yeah.
perhaps have anything to add here to the conversation?
No, I mean, it's quite interesting because I've seen the comment from Rob about user-generated. I mean, the attention between, I think it's Rob who said something about top-down versus bottom-up
Yes.
approach. Just to share a concrete example, I'm a very big fan of the bottom-up approach. So when I was at Danone, I purchased this generator for the entire company, so meaning the 100K employees. And what we've seen more content created, more learning outside of the learning team. So technically, it's possible. The full challenge behind that was political decision to explain to L&D that, okay, you're in charge of training, upskilling people, but in fact, you're just a fraction of what's happening within the organization. And it's super complex when you're L&D to explain that to other L&D and HR. So guys, hey, by the way, you only represent maybe only 20% of what is upskilling internally. And I used to call that shadow learning, having these 5 days training where people were booking meetings, sharing PowerPoint, and you were not capturing anything. because you didn't know that they were doing learning. You were losing the knowledge, you were losing the information, and then you create a lot of issues like when people and experts are leaving, you are also losing this. So that's why I've deployed Easy Generator at scale. It's to be able to do this shadow learning and do this bottom-up approach. And so it's possible, but it's really something to influence the learning team and HR to lose a bit of the control. But at
Yes.
the end, it's really losing the control, guys. Then you do moderation, you can do whatever, but it's a question about losing the control and not thinking you're the only expert in the company to do training. There is a lot of experts in the company, and to be honest, when I was running this, the last numbers when I left the company, I have something like 2,500 authors, so which is not bad. And the learning team was only 100,000 people. So you see the gap, 25 more creators providing learning than the learning team, just because democratizing it. And what we've seen at the end, we've seen really good content, really good training done by the experts that were able to move it at the top up, let's say corporate or top approach. But this requires a change management and a culture change. Losing the control. You're not losing your expertise, you're not losing your job, you just adapt a bit. You're not the only expert. So this is something important. And it's great with this generator. But the thing is, it's clearly a question about trying to accept that you're not the only expert and you're much more here, like be the guardian. Like, you have all these ship, the guy owning the ship, I think, the animal. Sorry, I'm French. As you can see, I'm always confusing the word. But you manage the team, but it's a mindset change, and you need to. It's democratizing UGC, change management. I'm a big fan of that, and you see that's why YouTube is doing well, because a lot of people are doing that on YouTube. And then when you see good content on YouTube, what happens? It's going on the ranking because people are watching it, learning based on that. So bottom approach.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's interesting as well. I know we're saying losing control. For some people, that might, I don't know, strike some fear, but perhaps you could rephrase it, see what you're gaining. So you're gaining knowledge that's being shared, that's there, and you're capturing it in one space, but you're also,
you're gaining knowledge,
time maybe.
Data. You're getting data. You're getting knowledge. You're securing knowledge. You're making sure that you do business continuity. In fact, you're gaining, not losing, you're getting more than you believe. But it's also, for me, I don't think it's rocket science what I'm saying. I'm not saying, any spaceship on the moon. For me, it's common sense. But sometimes common sense, it's difficult because it touches humans that have been in position for 20 years or maybe more, that have a control. This is their job. And we come and say, no, it will change. So it's really a change management approach. And it's changing job and say, guys, you're not the only expert. Now your job will slightly change. You will be the guide more than the trainer.
Mm-hmm. So taking a new kind of approach to N&D, so acting more as a guide, but also it frees up time to focus on some more of the strategic priorities. Angie, I know that you mentioned some of the design principles. So I'm curious as well if there's people on this call and they would like to start supporting their subject matter experts or knowledge holders to create training. Do you have any practical tips from a design perspective that you would share?
Oh, 100%. I think I saw the question, so I hope I can answer everyone's. I think what I'll cover is the design. Somebody also asked about how to integrate this into then, Salesforce, so people are picking up directly. And then somebody also asked about gamification. I think design, I'm passionate about design because I manage a team of instructional designers. And every day we're thinking that, how do we make it interesting but quick? Everybody needs quality and quantity and speed. We call our Excel Academy a factory, believe it or not. So from an engineering term, we are running a factory. We need to make sure the production happens very quick and the quality is there and the quantity is there. So for us, one of the things that's helped wonderfully, especially with Easy Generator, one, we can get an SSO done, so we can single sign on. So which means I can pass my review links to anybody, to any subject matter expert. And we faced, let me give you some real use cases, guys. So we had a challenge where we had this whole 60 principle in place. We had an ADDIE model. We had all of these kind of methodologies. But there's always things that can go the other way. So we were almost about to publish, and there comes a SME. And it was like, no, we need to change this whole thing. So the 6 weeks of work that went in there was we had to redo it. So we were thinking that what can we do differently so that doesn't happen. So when we were designing, we shared the author. We made our SMEs the authors of the content. So instead of them putting in a comment and then we making the change and then we uploading it, you see how much time goes there. And that's a traditional way of doing things. And now, because like Fred said, we need to lose control. Not lose control. We need to kind of, have that
Share.
flexibility, share control, have the
Yeah.
flexibility. And that has immensely helped us. So we make co-authors, we make the SMEs co-authors. They simply go in there and they make the changes. Then our instructional designers do the final, edits and what is needed over there. So that has definitely helped in speeding up the design process and whatnot. And gamification, again, guys, it really depends on how much of your what gamification creativity you guys are bringing it on, and second, what are the tools that you're using to gamify, and if your LMS supports that gamification aspect of it. But there's so many different ways of doing that as well. And one thing that helps us with our content is our LMS speaks into Salesforce. So we can, like I said, one of the earlier questions, right? How can they learn without interruption is when these courses shows up on the CRM itself. So there are ways of integrating systems. So yeah, if these courses show up in the right product development stage for the product team, in the right sales stage for the sales team, it just works for them.
Yeah. Thanks,
I
Angie.
hope
Thanks for
I
sharing.
answered. Yeah.
No, it made a lot of sense. You shared a lot of, I think, practical insights that people can also, or I hope at least, can see relating back to what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve. And I know we're speaking a lot about change, so I think we should perhaps move the conversation a little bit forward thinking, let's say, and take a look at how we can make this happen. Um, so yeah, I'd be curious, Fred, what do you think is stopping teams from doing this, from learning in the flow of work, that is, and how can they make this part of their learning culture?
I mean, it's a complex. It's not a complex. In a way, it's an easy question to answer, to understand, with the simple answers, but it's complex. To have been doing that into few companies, really huge, because Danone was the smallest one. It was only 100K employees, but between this range, between 100K to 500K employees, what is the first thing? What is complex? It's first understanding the culture of the company. You need to clearly understand the culture of the company. Some companies are really bottom up, top down. Some others could be a little bit more bottom up. So first of all, it's really understand your culture, and then it's influencing, and then trying to. When I say influence, it's creating a dynamic from the top, and then also if you can from the bottom. But in some of the company, you need to start the culture from the top and say we need to change, we need to democratize, we need to. So it's influence, it's politics, and you will create that. And learning culture is not something that is happening in one day. It takes time. It will be a long journey. And I like to say that because, again, when I joined Danone, they said we want to create a learning culture, and they were already advanced. And I said, no, guys, we'll not create a learning culture in 1 year. At least I will make people curious, because I can tell you, learning culture. I've been in a company called GE. They're starting learning in the 60s. And I've seen what learning culture, it's when it's in DNA of the company, and every manager that doesn't even talk about learning, they're talking about experience. So it's a long journey. So it's really, first of all, understanding where you are in the company, trying to really understand the power and influence, who is doing what. And then it will be to influence, to democratize, to repeat, to preach, to come back like your parents. I mean, that's what we call culture. Huh? We have a culture because our parents are giving us something that they get from their parents, that they get it from their parents. So it takes time. So repeating, and also putting in place actions. And for that, you need to really assess your company, what works well. Some people will be top down, so you have to start from that. Some people will be much more mixed, bottom up, top down. So in this case, you have much more flexibility, but you will have to repeat it. So that's when I have this question about really creating this, we'll always start first understand where you are. When you've done the assessment of where you are, you have the mapping, start try to do the assessment and start where it makes sense. So sometimes it will be bottom up, top down, but you need to understand and repeat and repeat and influence. It will be a long journey. I know it's not the super answer like say, hey, you can do this way. You would have to understand where you are, and based on that, you would have to start your plan. So it will never be the same logic, but there is some insight.
Of course there is. And yeah, I often say I need a mug saying it depends. And I know it's not always the answer people want to hear, but I think you offered some really practical advice there about what
I
they
had
can
to lie.
do to
To be
make the
honest,
first
I had
steps.
to lie.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing. I will not tell you it's magic. You do this way, it will work. It will
Yeah.
totally depend on the company and really the culture and the dynamic and how you get the CEO supportive of that. If you can have the
Course. And
CEO
if it was,
behind you, it will help. But some company, learning, I've seen like the last thing on the list. So you will have to
yeah.
preach for your own, house and say it's important.
Oh,
And
But yeah, if it was magic, we wouldn't be having these discussions either. So
yeah, I will not be
I
here. I
think,
will do
yeah, it's
something
good
else.
advice. Yeah, of course. And then Angie, yeah, I'd be really curious for your thoughts as well on this topic. What do you think is stopping teams from really, yeah, adopting a learning in the flow of work culture?
Um, okay, I'm going to think about it in a little bit of different, in a little different context, because it's not about um, the- everybody always thinks that it's people's responsibility to do the training, to take the training, to learn it. That is what the L&D people always think. Why are they not taking it? They should do it, they should do that. uh, One of the things I've done differently in my role here is form the partnerships, make sure, where Fred, you said we need to pitch ourselves to other business units. So partnering with other business units, making ourselves known as to what we are doing, why we are doing, understanding their problems, and literally solving those problems for them. So it's not that I've created a content and I'm asking everyone to take it. Consumption is going to be God knows what. But if I say, hey, Ashling, I've come to you, I want to know, what is it that you're struggling with? How would you like me to design the content for you, so that, and give you those practical input of, learning styles, or, micro learning, and all of those elements? You are more open to it then. And then you give me your exact context of what is it that you want to learn, why is it that you want to learn, and what you want the learners to do. And then the content becomes relevant. So the only way we can have that continuity in learning, if the content is relevant. Content is king, guys, right? Content
Yes.
is the king. So no matter what we do, if the content is not relevant, no one's really going to consume it. But how do we
Mhm.
make that content relevant? By making that partnership. So I make sure I spend time with every single person in the business if possible. Trust me, guys, I am going smiling, talking to every single person. Doesn't matter they are technical account managers, doesn't matter they are SDRs, doesn't matter they are ADRs. They got to know that we are here to support them. And then, that bridge matters a lot. That
Perfect. So
partnership matters.
yeah, acting as a bridge, going to the people and asking what they want. I will say from working with clients rolling out these types of approaches, if we're solely focusing on the content, we would recommend the same, and this is what we see working. Asking
Yeah.
subject matter experts what's important to them, what are they
Right.
getting stopped at the coffee machine to answer, what emails in their inbox every week. But also if we maybe loop back to the beginning of the conversation, also looking at the business, what's important to you as a business, what are your main KPIs, what metrics are up or down. I don't know, is there sales conversions down or safety incidents up, and starting there and tackling some core concepts. um, but I also think, yeah, when we're highlighting things here, it might be a chicken or an egg scenario, which comes first. And at the beginning of the call, Fred, you also mentioned speed. So you do also need to have an infrastructure there in place to make sure that your learners getting to your or your learning is getting to your learners at the moment of need.
It's like a puzzle. You need to have all the pieces of the puzzle
Yes.
and put it together. I mean, you have to have the technology. I mean, I used to have a lot
Mhm.
of analogy. For me, it will be the pipe. Like you have a pipe and something is going in the pipe, you have to have the best pipe ever to not have creating any bottleneck. That will be the delivery method. Try to make sure you have the right delivery method. So possibly LIFO if you can, but having something that supports your delivery method the fastest possible. And then of course the content. If I'm putting something in the pipe that doesn't look good, I mean, people will get it and doesn't care. So it's a question about also the speed of delivery, the content of what you're delivering, also the modality, because now you will see that modality will change on real time based on the neural divergence or diversity, no divergence, difference. No, sorry, I don't find the word in English. The different learning style, because people are we see that are different learning styles. So it's really a question about speed, having the right infrastructure, having the right content, the right modality, and all of that will support. So it's really a combination of a lot of things together.
Yeah, of course. And I think, you wrapped it up nicely, the combination of things together. And thankfully there's tools on either end that can help you. So like Rise Up, helping you get your content to people, or East Generator on our end, helping you, capture the information that you need. So thank you both so much for the conversation today. I know we have a little bit of time left, and I know that there's questions in the chat. So hopefully we can answer a few more of those. I'm trying to have a look now at the chat to see what there is. Angie, maybe you can help answer a question from Sylvia. And speak a little bit how you're technically integrating the content into the learning systems, like you mentioned, Salesforce.
Right. So we have got an API that connects our LMS into Salesforce. So you can connect through depending on which particular system you use. All the systems integrate with Salesforce in so many different ways. So we connect ours using an API. Yeah, we've got a custom-made API using Make that we do because we can make it do more things and go to the places. So it's not your native API that gets offered from the provider, but we use our own API, being a technology company, of course.
Okay. Thanks, Angie. It makes a lot of sense. And I know that providers will also offer different integrations as well. So it's always good to check to see what's available. I see there's another question from Ellie on having any tips about making learning more accessible for learners, so supporting their different needs. I know you were touching on this, Fred, so perhaps you can offer some insight here.
There is, many things you can do. And I've seen something about VoiceOver. It's one solution. So now the good thing is quite easy to have VoiceOver on any type of digital content. So meaning if you have a score module now, technically, I think each generator is supporting this natively, the feature. But of course, having VoiceOver is one solution. Subtitle is one solution. And I can give you a simple thing. That my kids, they have some issues with reading. They can read, but they don't encore. The only way for them to encore is to listen. So it provides a new modality for this type of learners. Some other will be much more about how you interact with things. In French, I think in English it's
kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic. In French, I know, kinesthetic or whatever. I can say it in French.
I got there.
But you get the fact that some people need to learn by touching. The thing is, which is great news, with technology now we can achieve to have multimodality deployment. So meaning with one content, we'll be able to provide different type of modalities and that makes the best for people. And again, same story for people that have kind of disabilities with colors. You can real time adjust the colors. So what is important is we will have to provide, L&D will have to provide, but as a technological company, we need to have solution for that. And good news is we can do that. But for learners now, we know that it's a no-brainer. You need to have that because otherwise you skip a big part of the population. So VoiceOver is one solution, but I will go even more than that. VoiceOver, touching, working with colors, with animation for people that need that to learn. For me, I need to have always something in my hand to be able to retain something. Sorry for that, I have this problem. But yes, technology will support that. So VoiceOver is one good thing.
Yeah, I have the same. I use fidget spinners as well after breaking many a handle on a pen. So I'm the same there as well. I have to have something tactical, let's say. Thank you for that, Fred. I see even more questions. There's one coming from Eldon about how we compare just-in-time learning and micro-learning within a knowledge management system. And yeah, Angie, I know you've been talking about this a bit, so perhaps you can offer some more insight.
Absolutely. This is exactly what we do in our company, in our firm here. So that's what I've done. So I've made sure that we've mapped it. So have that skills mapping ready. So I've got that whole framework ready of what are the roles, pre-sales, post-sales, what are the roles that you're catering, and what are the capabilities those roles offer, and what are the different sales stages or product development stages, whatever it is that your organization is doing, but have that mapping done. And our system here that we use allows our LMS allows us to skill map. Pretty much all LMSs do. I think that's what you said. That's an absolute essential now. And once you've mapped it and integrated your systems into your Salesforce CRM, Salesforce is as integrated it, it automatically, that is the beauty of technology, it automatically prompts you. That is your just-in-time training. So I'm going for a meeting and I have full access to Salesforce, and that is where I want to go and say, what training should I look into? And then you have categorization. This is your 1 hour training, or this is your micro training, this is bite sized. Have all those categorizations ready as well. That is what learners like. Make their life easy. Do not put the word mandatory to them, because then they won't do it for knowledge. They will do it because it's a tick box. And that's where L&D has to change its perception that we can't make them do things because it's mandatory. How can you creatively still make them do the training without using the word mandatory? And this is what you can do: the skills mapping, making it available in the systems that they are using. So making sure your systems are integrating with each other. And when you're doing workshops, blend it. Like I said, we are doing a catalyst workshop, and we've got the pre-work already in the system, and we make sure people do it. And then I've got this chat going on in the background. Well done, this person, like a gamification. Well done, Ashling, you've done it. You're
Yeah.
my star. I don't have to give you anything, but even that word of praise and
Yeah,
creating
the
that healthy
acknowledgement.
is
Mhm.
good. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've touched on another question that we're getting in the chat about how you can blend self-paced content with classroom training. And Fred, maybe you have some insights here that you can share.
Yeah, I can. I mean, I like this question because as I said, I've been on the other side, and I was always struggling with that, and it's also a reason why I joined Rise Up, because when I've seen the solution, I said something slightly different. And why? Because I like also the way we say blended learning now, because at first blended learning meaning is blended different type of elements modality, but now most of the people when they say blended learning, it's a question. It's blending two things: synchronous synchronous learning with asynchronous learning. And that's what we do at Rise Up. It's really the DNA of the company. Every single training has been designed to be a sequence of synchronous and asynchronous learning, meaning in synchronous learning, it's mainly, online class or face-to-face training, but asynchronous is whatever you want. So how we do that? Let's say first you get a solution that support that, because not all solutions are designed to support blended learning. Otherwise, it's a collection of learning that you try to make it function together, which is slightly different. So to answer that, I mean, have a solution that support that. Otherwise, you will struggle to create this logic of blended learning. You will do a lot of manual actions, a lot of admin tasks that are really not relevant. And again,
I
in
agree.
blended learning, it's synchronous and asynchronous.
Yeah,
Asynchronous.
supporting both, of course.
I just want to add one more point there, because
Yeah.
sometimes we miss it. We categorize online learning as one thing, and we categorize workshops, face-to-face workshops, as one thing. But in our world, we call it blended training. But I think the end outcome is analytics. How are you going to measure the ROI, right? How are you going to measure the success of it all? Business outcomes, or the impact of your training, or influential impact of your training. So the way you design your blended training should all be on your system, in your LMS. That is critical, at least from my perspective, because then I can easily show it to the business that they came to the system, they took the pre-work, 9 out of 10 people completed it. On the job training, when they're doing the workshop, we make them do assessment then and there, log into the system, take the assessment, keep them engaged, because then they're hooked to the system. Once they've finished, we send them the assessment post workshop that is also on the system. So you can literally marry every single element to it in one report. And that is what the business wants.
So yeah, leveraging those learning platforms, learning systems like Rise Up. I know that, yeah, Angie and I had seen some conversations recently about how SCORM and Learn is now irrelevant and AI can do everything. And yeah, it's nice to see that that's not the case in
That
the
is not
conversation.
L&D people. We are here to stay. We are
Yeah.
just evolving with the technology. No one is taking us away. And this is I'm so passionate about it. Ashling, you knew that, right? We
Yes.
want that L&D people are here to stay. SCOM is here to stay. Oh my God. It doesn't matter what level of AI comes in, SCORM is here to stay.
Yeah, of course, I agree. And then, yeah, and then we also need a modality to deliver our training. So it's nice to have them there. I am conscious of the time, and I know that, yeah, it's the end of the day for some people, the beginning for others. So I do want to thank you both, Angie and Fred, for coming. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I believe everyone did, and I hope everyone else did too. So thank you both so much for being willing to share your insights.